Hi, it's Dr. Phoenix. Today we're going to be looking at regulation of the cell cycle. How does the cell know when it's time to undergo mitosis? How is the cell regulated? Well, it's been determined through a number of years of study that there are three factors that will affect the way the cell undergoes the cell cycle. When exactly does it enter mitosis? When does it stay in interphase? These three factors are internal regulators, external regulators, and physical regulators. Internal regulators are proteins that respond to events that are occurring inside the cell. For instance, there are proteins that will make sure that all of the chromosomes are replicated before allowing the cell to undergo mitosis. There are other proteins that will check and make sure that all of the sister chromatids have attached to a spindle fiber before allowing the cell to enter anaphase of mitosis. Another example of an internal regulator is a protein called cyclins.
Code Stanford, call extension
Cyclins
8200. Code Stanford, call extension
were discovered
8200.
in an experiment similar to this one. They took a cell that was already in mitosis and they withdrew some of its cytoplasm, not knowing what might be present in it that was causing it to undergo mitosis. And they took that cytoplasm and injected it into a second cell that was not in mitosis. It was actually in interphase during the G2 stage of it. And lo and behold, that new cell then immediately entered mitosis as a result of receiving whatever was in the cytoplasm of that first cell. So they called these chemicals cyclins because it had an effect on the cell cycle. So these are examples of internal regulators. There are also proteins that respond to events that are occurring outside the cell. For instance, in our body we have hormones such as growth hormone, and growth hormone has an effect on all of our body cells and causes the cells to speed up metabolism and to grow. Well, we have proteins that respond to those growth hormones and will then send signals within the cell to begin to undergo mitosis. Physical regulators are regulators that respond to actual physical contact. We could take a group of cells and put them into a petri dish, and they will grow on the surface of the growth medium until they fill up the bottom of the petri dish. Once they do that, the cells will stop growing because there is physical contact all around them, and this will send a signal that they are to stop growing. If we took a slice through the middle of that petri dish, then the cells on the edge would immediately begin to undergo mitosis. There would be a signal that would tell them that there's no longer any physical inhibition, that they can grow, and they will grow from both sides until they meet in the middle and again fill in the petri dish. This is similar to what our skin does when our skin is damaged from a cut or a scrape. So these three regulators, internal regulators, external regulators, and physical regulators, will determine when and how often cells will undergo mitosis and when they will stay in the G1 phase of interphase. All right, so some checkpoints before we move on. There are stop and go signals that regulate the cell cycle. Typically the cell is in the off mode. The cell is not undergoing cell division most of the time. They're usually in mitosis they're usually in interphase, and they don't enter mitosis until some sort of a signal is presented to them. Okay, now what happens if the cell doesn't respond properly to these stimuli? Well, that's when cancer takes place. Cancer is a disorder in which some of the body's own cells don't respond properly to these signals. And when that happens, the cells just undergo uncontrolled mitosis and form some sort of a mass or a tumor. So cancer begins when a single cell mutates into a cancer cell. Now, fortunately, the body's immune system will normally recognize that the cell is damaged or not normal, and our immune system will typically take care of that by destroying that cell. But if that doesn't happen and the cell survives, then that cell will undergo mitosis, and all of the daughter cells that came from that mutated cancer cell will also be cancerous. And that's how we end up with some sort of a tumor. If the tumor is slow growing, the body has the ability to sort of surround it and encapsulate it and keep it in one place. And that's called a benign tumor. But if the tumor is rapidly growing, then the body cannot keep it in one place. It will spread so fast that some of these cells can actually move to other locations. When malignant cells separate from the original tumor, they can get into the bloodstream, and they can get into the lymph system, and they can travel to other parts of the body, such as the brain, the liver, the lungs, the bone marrow. And when that happens, these malignant cells can take up a new residence and form new tumors in these other locations. That is referred to as metastasis. Malignant cells moving from their original location into other locations and setting up new tumors is called metastasis. All right, so there you have it. Regulation of the cell cycle, how cells normally respond to internal, external, and physical regulators, and what happens when cells are not responding as they should to these regulators. All right, I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to bring them to class or shoot me a question on my big campus. I'll be glad to answer it. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you in class.